Good evening. My name is Jagi Gill. I'm the founder of Tenex Health. We are a medical device company based in Orange County, California. I wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking about my thoughts on what medical innovation has to do with our healthy future. You, in this part of the world, in this part of the country, you certainly know about innovation. Whether you're a large company that has a global footprint, you have hundreds and thousands of employees, you have many products, and you sell to many physicians, or you're a startup or a company that's just launched their product, you have one commonality, which is you are obligated to develop your product so you can make people feel better, relieve their pain, perhaps even take care of the disease. That's your obligation. The challenge that I would submit to you as a young company is you have additional headwind. You are not blessed with a lot of money, so there's a lot of bake sales and you're selling a lot of cookies and lemonades. You also are not blessed with time. You don't have a script of how to develop your product and take it out to the market. You don't have a playbook. So there's no roadmap. So those are the headwinds in front of you. So with all of that, it's very daunting. And it's no secret, certainly, that many of these companies fail. And they fail not necessarily of bad intent or a bad product in terms of its effect. They fail on making, I believe, repetitive mistakes over and over again. So there's an odd bedfellow between the word failure and success. And I'm certainly not as thoughtful, and I'm not nearly as eloquent as Winston Churchill, but I think he captured it well for me. Here's what success is, in his mind. It's stumbling from failure to failure without any loss of enthusiasm. If many of you read entrepreneurial texts, articles, blogs, what have you, one of the themes in the last 5+ years is failing fast. I believe that's overhyped. And then it's migrated to failing fast and failing often. So there's a little masochist for you, right? You want to keep doing it over and over again. And then maybe failing better. Is it really better? And then the winner is you want to fail forward as opposed to failing backwards. Don't know what that is. I reject that. I reject that because I don't think we wake up. No one here, I certainly don't. We don't wake up thinking we're going to embrace or strive for failure. I would submit to you we should think about how do we habituate resilience, because there is a difference between failing and getting up and being resilient. So what do those platitudes mean, when you're starting a medical device company? As I've experienced, one of the things you have to do, this is probably the hardest thing. You need to identify your mistakes quickly. And here's the challenge. You don't know if you're making a mistake or not. There's no playbook. You don't know if you should go left or right. But you need to always go on first principles. What do we know to be true? Then you need to have the courage to correct it and then reset the course. And I think the most important thing as you're building a team and building a company, you need to build a culture to be bold and nimble. They seem to be counter comments, but you need to make some bold moves, and you need to admit to yourself and to your colleagues and your employees, I think we made a mistake on this thing, and instead of going left, we should do student body right. So, in the last few minutes, let me kind of describe for you at least my optics on, in today's environment, how do you minimize your mistakes, yet fulfill your obligation that you have to deliver, hopefully, life-changing technology. And you have to do it in today's environment, where you have regulatory challenges, you certainly have insurance challenges, there's IP, and then obviously in the economic environment where it's always turbulent, where do you get your money to make this happen? The first thing is, and these are the challenges that all companies have, is how do you identify your unmet clinical need? And I'll give you an example. If you're trying to develop an implant for the hip or the knee, and you think you can do better, you have to ask yourself, how much better can you really do? Most of the hips and knees today work, if you will, if you want to use that term, work 90 to 95% of the time. So do you really think your gizmo is going to be better than 95% of the time because you make it blue and the other ones are red? And oh, by the way, you have to make yours competitive in terms of price. So that's a long way of saying is the juice worth the squeeze? Because you're going to have to put all that energy into developing that product, whether it's a big market or a small market. So might as well, to use the sports analogy, swing for the fence instead of trying to go and get that single. Can you make a commercial-grade product? This is the challenge that I have stumbled on in my past, and not to turn this into a therapy session, this is one that I'm still trying to get myself out of. As the inventor's paradox dictates, it's very easy to make one of something, because you're a technician and you're a scientist and you can make it pretty. The challenge is, how do you not make one, but you got to make 1,000 of these? because you don't want to sell one, you want to sell 1,000 because you want to help thousands of people. So how do you design it to scale? And oh, by the way, you can't be at the workshop making it, so you have to automate that. So how do you do that? And then the third aspect is, how do you make it cost effective? Because you're going to get challenged by price, whether it's insurance or your competitors. So you have to think about it, as perverse as it sounds, I can't make one, how do I make 1,000 of these things when you're first designing it? Who are the physicians or your customers that you're going to need to influence? This is one also we learned the hard way. Because the reality is you're not going to be going and influencing the physicians. As the developer, as the initial employee, you have the passion. It's not going to be you. It's going to be your sales force. It's going to be your employees talking to the physicians. And unfortunately, you realize very quickly you have people that are very equipped and have the passion that you have, and then you have others that can fog a mirror. And hopefully your employees are somewhere in the middle, right? So you need to be very succinct. You need to be very precise of what your technology is, because it's not you that's talking about it. It's an extension of you, and you need to be able to articulate that extension through those people that are presenting your product. Finally, economics, and this is the main issue, I believe. There's constant pressures in terms of reimbursement. There's constant pressures in terms of competitors. There's constant pressures of how much you make it. So how well you design your product in terms of that economic word and the financial word margins, you need to think about that out of the gate. Because once you start developing your product, it's very hard to turn around. Again, some mistakes that I've seen many of the early stage entrepreneurs make. Let me finish off with this, and certainly this is more from a development stage optics and a medical technology optics. What do I think the role of medical technology is in our healthy future? I've said this in my preamble. It's addressing a large unmet need, and there's many of them. Chronic disease, cancerous diseases, debilitating disease. There's tons of those out there, and that's the obligation, not incremental. It's got to be safe and cost-effective. Here's what's happening in our culture today. Whether it's the FDA or insurance companies, they don't care anymore how well your gizmo works. They care your gizmo works, and, by the way, is it cost-effective? And that's how they'll decide whether they're going to use your product or not. And finally, everyone in this room, based on where you were today versus 10 years ago, you're much more aware of your environment. You're much more aware of what you have out there through the internet. So you will study and you will research your products. So it's an obligation to both educate your customer, your physician, as well as your other customer, which is your patients. So that is a new environment that I think all companies will get into, and they'll have to absorb and have to accommodate. So with that, let me close by thanking you for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.